What's up, everybody? Happy Monday. Welcome to the Pack-A-Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. We now know who the Packers will be facing in the NFC Championship game at Lambeau Field. It will not be the New Orleans Saints. It will be Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. Well, how about 22 degrees on a frozen tundra? Sounds just about perfect to me. This is going to be one of those matchups that probably lives up to the hype, that will go down as, Rodgers, Brady, NFC Championship, trip to the Super Bowl on the line. The stakes, outside of playing in a Super Bowl, of course, the stakes could not be any higher. And just take a step back and take a moment and appreciate the amazingness that's going to be this week. And I realize that there's going to be a lot of talk, a lot of chatter. There's going to be a lot of conversation about Brady and Rodgers. And it's going to be one of those weeks where everyone's just dying for Sunday to get here, because it's just going to be, your fingernails will be gone by like Tuesday mid-afternoon, and you just want to see the game played out. But these type of matchups, these type of games, they don't come along all that often. And to be able to have this matchup that should be so insanely epic and, like I said, completely live up to the hype, I'm just so excited for it. And I know there's a laundry list of disappointing Packers playoff, end of the seasons. I know there's, some amazing Super Bowl accomplishments, NFL championships, and so on and so forth. I know Tampa Bay destroyed Green Bay in their first matchup in week 6. None of that matters. Absolutely none of it matters. This is just going to be one of those matchups that's going to be decided out on the field. I love some of the advantages that Green Bay's had. Tampa had 2 back-to-back playoff games against, Washington and New Orleans. Had to travel to Washington, had to travel to New Orleans. Now they'll have to travel to Green Bay. None of the destinations are super far if you're Tampa, but ultimately that travel can catch up to you. Green Bay hasn't had a ton of play, right? They've had one game since their January game against the Chicago Bears at the end of the season. They've got one game against the Rams. Let's be honest, they didn't exert a ton of effort in that game. It wasn't an easy win, but it's not like they got beaten up through the entirety of that game. Meanwhile, you watch Bucs and Saints, that was a physical game. Those two teams were beating up on one another. And, Green Bay comes in fresh, much more fresh than Tampa Bay is in this game. They've got home field advantage. They don't have to travel. They got the extra day of rest from playing Saturday instead of Sunday. There's a lot of baked-in advantages for Green Bay in this game. And again, those don't necessarily mean victory, but they can definitely help along the way. This game, to me, is going to come down to a few different things. First and foremost, and this is going to be cliche, right? Every playoff game, turnovers are going to be this huge thing. But you look at these two teams. Let's look at Tampa Bay first. Tampa Bay in that first game against Green Bay, those 2 turnovers, those 2 interceptions, which were basically both pick sixes, if you want to be real about it, that completely changed the outcome of that game. It was 10-0 Green Bay. Green Bay had the ball, and all of a sudden the game was out of hand by the time Green Bay got the ball back in the second half, and they were completely out of their game plan. And then you look at this game against the New Orleans Saints for Tampa Bay just this past on Sunday. The 3 turnovers from New Orleans all resulted in points for Tampa Bay. If New Orleans doesn't turn the ball over, I think the Saints win that game. The Saints were bad in that game, and Drew Brees looked terrible. I still think they win that game. And, again, I want to say and point this out again, because it's worth noting again. What happened in week 6 has no bearing on this game. The Saints got crushed like the Bucs got crushed like 38-3 against the Saints, and just won a playoff game. They lost both games in the regular season against the Saints and just won a playoff game against them. What happened in the regular season will not affect what happens this coming weekend. And Tampa Bay definitely has, some things going for them as well. That defense plays fast. As I mentioned, going into that Rams game, Green Bay has struggled with fast physical linebackers. We saw what Devin White and Levante David were able to do in that Week 6 matchup. We saw what Todd Bowles was able to do blitzing Aaron Rodgers and bringing some looks that Green Bay and Rodgers weren't expecting. There's going to be some things that are going to challenge Green Bay in this game. Tampa was phenomenal in the red zone against Green Bay. That's going to have to be something that gets changed up. So first of all, turnovers, and the stat that I wanted to mention, and Zach Kruse actually pointed this out. A lot of credit to Zach lately. Zach's amazing. He just does such an insanely wonderful job covering the Packers. But Green Bay this season, 11-0 without a turnover. 3-3 with a turnover. So their turnover differential has been huge to their level of success this season. How about Tampa Bay? 7-0 with no turnover. And if in games where they've had 2 turnovers, 1-4. So not only did Tampa take advantage of Green Bay with turnovers, not only did Tampa take advantage of New Orleans with turnovers, both of these teams' statistics will show turnovers have been the name of the game. And it's not difficult to tell when you've got 2 teams matched up that are this close and have these 2 caliber quarterbacks, turnovers are going to play a major role in this game. And I'll equate mistakes right up there with turnovers, right? Drop passes, things that turn 3rd downs into 4th downs where you have to punt, poor punts, poor special teams, missed extra points. Those are the things that, against the Rams, frankly, you can get away with. Against Tampa Bay in a game where everything's on the line, you probably can't. So I think that's going to be 1A to keep an eye on going into this game. There's a few matchups that I think just, as I kind of initially looked at this, that I'm really excited about too. As I look at Davante Adams, right? All week, the talk was about Davante Adams, Jalen Ramsey, and how Ramsey's going to travel with Adams. Well, Carlton Davis did a really nice job against Davante Adams. In fact, in that game, Adams had 6 catches for 60 yards. Both the interceptions were targeted Davante Adams in that game. So Tampa did a really nice job, and Carlton Davis was a big part of that. So how can Green Bay better utilize Davante Adams against Tampa in this matchup? I think Green Bay is much more and much better prepared to face Tampa this time around and how they're playing offense right now. And honestly, you talk about what Green Bay did to the Rams on defense, which again, number 1 defense. I think a lot of the things you can follow that same formula. I think Green Bay's got to figure out a way to run the ball inside. If you remember against Tampa Bay, Green Bay tried some toss plays, some stretch plays, some runs outside, and Devin White and Levante David just blew those things up. Like, they had no chance, and they were negative gains and so on and so forth. Green Bay's got to run the ball inside the guards. Let Elton Jenkins, Corey Linsley, Lucas Patrick, who is a better run blocker than he is a pass protector. He's a really good run blocker. Those 3 have got to win inside and give Green Bay a chance to get to the second level, let those offensive linemen get on Levante David and Devin White and make it a physical game rather than a speed game on the outside. And I think Green Bay, just some of the mismatches that they provide, where, again, Davante Adams, how do you want to cover him? Are you comfortable one-on-one? The Bucs play a lot of man coverage. They played a lot of it against the Saints. I can guarantee you that Matt LaFleur is going to be better prepared and have a ton of man beaters, schemed up in this game and ready to go. And they're going to be much better prepared for those blitzes. But I'm really interested to see that Davante Adams matchup and how Green Bay utilizes him in this game. Really interested to see Packers offensive line versus Bucs, defensive line and really their front. Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul, and Ndamukong Suh all had, good games, and that front set the tone. Green Bay had trouble blocking them. Now, warm temperatures, away game, Tampa Bay's playing on their home turf. Green Bay, that turf might be a little bit longer, might not be quite as explosive for the defense. Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul might not get quite the explosion off the line of scrimmage. There might be some snow. This is a southern team playing in northern temperatures, 20 degrees likely, potentially against some snow. So we'll see how that defensive line and that defensive front responds for Tampa Bay. But we just saw Green Bay take it to the LA Rams, physical, intense football on the interior. And if they can do that to Tampa Bay, like they did against the Rams, that would be a huge, huge win for Green Bay and set them up for success throughout that game. So I'm really looking at how those 2 match up. Again, the Packers offensive line, which was phenomenal against the Rams, against the Tampa Bay Bucs line that really, I don't know if I want to say dominated, but they brought it to Green Bay's offensive line in their first matchup. And then I want to see how Green Bay's defensive backs match up with Tampa Bay's weapons on the outside. They struggled with Gronk in that game, but Antonio Brown's now a factor. You've got Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. That entire group is going to be really tough. Ronald Jones had a huge game against Green Bay. Thankfully, Green Bay's defensive line has played much better. But I think those matchups on the outside, I would expect Green Bay to play a ton of zone. I don't think you want to get in a ton of man-to-man with Antonio Brown versus Chandon Sullivan. I think Kevin King can hold up against some of those bigger, more physical receivers, but I think overall Tampa Bay's weapons have an advantage in man-to-man coverage on the whole against Green Bay's defensive backfield. So I'd expect a lot of zone coverage, and it's going to be up to Green Bay to really play on top of their game because Tom Brady can listen. Green Bay's philosophy has been let the team dink and dunk you. Well, they're the greatest all-time dink and dunker is Tom Brady, right? So you're going to have a plan. You're going to have to get there with 4. You're going to have to take advantage of Donovan Smith at left tackle, Tristan Wirfs, Ali Marpet, Ryan Jensen. That entire offensive line's been so damn good all season. Donovan Smith is a weak point. Also, their right guard, whose name is escaping me at the moment, their starting right guard is out and is going to be out for this game. So they do have a backup right guard in the game as well. So Green Bay maybe has a couple of advantages that they can take advantage of there, but they're going to have to. Those matchups are going to be huge to get pressure on Brady and make sure that he doesn't just sit in the pocket and take some of those easy throws that Green Bay is usually willing to allow throughout the course of a game. I expect points from both of these sides, and I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. I mean, I think 31-30, something in that range, is going to be right about what we're talking about. It wouldn't shock me if this, even ended up a little bit higher than that. That's kind of going to be my breakdown for this game overall, as just kind of an initial gut reaction. Of course, I'll be breaking it down all week here. Just a couple other thoughts on kind of the divisional round. First of all, some scary hits to Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. I just want to say kudos to the NFL. Both of those teams, I'm sure both of those players were doing everything in their power to want to get Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes back on the field. But to see those guys, especially Mahomes, after he wasn't able to stand upright and was wobbly, you don't want to see those guys go back in the game. I mean, thankfully, the Ravens were, for the most part, kind of beat at that point. They didn't look good all day anyway. The Bills were the better team. So, the injury sucks, and it sucks to lose your quarterback in a situation like that. But I think the best team still won in that game. And same thing with the Chiefs. As much as I wanted the Browns to win that game, and it's tough not to root for the Browns in that situation, you don't want to see the best team in the NFL, at least up until this point, go out because your superstar MVP quarterback got knocked out of the game with a concussion. Hopefully Mahomes is ready to go. I can't wait for Mahomes and Josh Allen, Bills, Chiefs, and Brady Rodgers on the other side. You can't end up with 2 better conference championship games than that, which again should just be amazing. But kudos to the NFL for keeping both of those players out in those situations. Chad Henne, go figure, throws a punt ball up for grabs, just an awful interception, and then basically runs for almost a first down on, 3rd and 15, 3rd and 16, something like that, after taking a sack, and then picks up a first down. Just a ballsy move by Andy Reid to throw to Taysom Hill with Chad Henne in there in that situation. Crazy win for the Chiefs there. Also, end of a Saints era, right? Probably Drew Brees' last game in the NFL. And this, you can kiss the playoffs goodbye, I think, for a while for the Saints. This is a team that's going to have to cut literally half their team just to get under the salary cap. They're logistically going to be hard pressed with a crap ton of cuts just to even remotely get under the salary cap next year. And they're going to have to, they mortgaged their future, traded away picks, signed a ton of free agents. And now Breeze is going to retire. They're going to have to cut so many players. It's going to take a long time for the Saints to rebuild this franchise up. Honestly, they should probably sell high on Kamara and Ryan Ramczyk and Lattimore at corner and some of their stud players that they could probably get. Some of those guys probably multiple first-round draft picks for. By the time the Saints are ready to compete again, it's probably better to get the picks than have some of those guys, kind of age out over time. But it's going to be a while before I think we see the Saints in the playoffs again. This was definitely, at least it felt like, their last hurrah. And as far as Drew Brees goes, throws an interception on his last pass as a Saint. Brett Favre, last pass as a Packer, interception in the playoffs. Tom Brady, last pass as a Patriot, interception in the playoffs. Drew Brees, last pass as a Saint, interception in the playoffs. Just brutal ways to end all 3 of their careers as, a player with their key team. Obviously, Favre went on to play for the Vikings, and obviously now Brady for the Bucs, and neither of their last passes, at least up to this point, will be interceptions, but still just brutal ways to end their career with the main team, the team that they'll go into the Hall of Fame with. A couple other really quick things. I keep getting questions on Raven Greene and Tyler Ervin. We don't know anything, but I will say this. If they were getting close to play, remember, Green Bay can activate them and give them 3 weeks to practice and get ready, and they have not been activated from IR even to start practicing. So the fact that they weren't even ready to go through jog-throughs and walk-throughs and start practicing, because there's no downside to activating them at this point, because you don't have 3 games left, right? So the fact that they weren't able even to do any of that, is telling that they're probably not going to be ready. Even if they were activated this week off the practice squad, I would say that that's a better sign for the Super Bowl than it would be for the conference championship. So I would be fairly surprised if either Raven Greene or Tyler Ervin were ready to go this week, just based on the fact that neither of them were able to be eligible to practice over the course of the last week plus. And then last but not least, a lot of questions on Snacks Harrison. I think the Rams going a lot of up-tempo in that game. I think Green Bay wanted as many of their 3-down defenders on the field as much as possible. I know he wasn't I think he was only on the field for 3 snaps, but at the same token, I think you got to trust Green Bay with those decisions. The idea of Snacks Harrison is amazing, right? But, Seattle barely found ways to use him. He was on the field, maybe 12 plays against Chicago, had some ups and some downs. And he's not going to bring much as a pass rusher. He's a rundown defender primarily at this point in his career. And if Green Bay feels like Lowry and Lancaster and Clark are the better way to go, I kind of trust that. I know you see, Price out there and having the false start, but if they're in a passing situation, you'd rather have Price out there than Snacks Harrison in that situation. So, I trust Green Bay with that decision, and I wouldn't expect a whole ton from Snacks Harrison. I think you could see more of him against Tampa. Again, if Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones get going a little bit more, but I don't expect a ton from him moving forward one way or the other. Guys, enjoy this week. It's going to be epic. This game is going to be epic. I cannot wait for it. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already so you can check out my videos all week long. Make sure to check out the Pack-A-Day podcast on the audio version where Perry Goldstein, Alex Strofe, and myself break down everything from this past weekend and look ahead to this coming weekend as well. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.